All right, welcome everybody. It is Monday. It's the perfect day for building it better. That's right. Monday is always the start of the week, which instead of looking down on, we should look up on because we're going to continue to drive this industry forward. So today is an incredible show with another incredible guest who will be kicking off with some breaking news. That's right. You may have seen the headlines this morning about the biggest player in the lumber space. Who is it? Where is it? You're in luck as we will dish on that today for sure. So, a perfect storm of price increases, rising mortgage rates, supply chain shortages, construction and remodeling backlogs, and home buying disinterest has precipitated a clear directive. Slow down. Evaluate the mixed signals before your next move. These are the signs that anyone in the home building or commercial construction markets should be aware of. Craig Webb of Webb Analytics is here today to provide insights and strategies for construction and supply companies, building materials manufacturers, distributors, and dealers. But first, we can't bring you all these informative conversations without thanking our sponsors. So a big shout out to Carson Holmquist and the team at Stream Logistics. They are experts in high stake freights. They are the perfect choice for projects with timelines and a specific delivery sequence, shipments with high complexity and unique constraints. The new methods of construction need new methods of transportation, and they are up for the challenge. Visit them at streamlogistics.com. And also CombiLift, they are the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us to all build it better. Check them out at combilift.com. And one more. And Brave is the new player in the industrialized construction lineup of flexible automation systems specifically designed for the construction industry, empowered by CAD to Fab, a turnkey solution for 3D volumetric, structural insulated panels, finished wall assemblies, MEP component processing, assembling, kitting, and storage. Check them out at thinkbrave.com. They are the place to go through for technology, robotics, and anything to make your factory be more optimized and run more efficiently. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. We got Craig Webb. Craig, what's up, man?
Hey there.
So
Hello there. How are you?
Man, you know what, Craig? I met you, 3-4 years ago. We were in Boston, right? And I think I was talking to Margaret Whelan, and I got to do an interview with you. You're an industry legend. You've been in the news and reporting world for a long, long time. You know it inside and out. And I know so many people that live and die by the reports you put out. So the fact that, one, you're on the show, I'm very excited. So thank you very much. Two, we just ran into each other at ECI, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here in Denver. But three, before we get started, you know how it works, Craig. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will bring a family member on, and that gets quite embarrassing. But you only have 2 minutes to do it, and then we'll hop into Webb Analytics, and we'll get right into the show. Go for it.
Born in July 1954 here just outside of Washington, D.C., grew up in Indiana across the street from the University of Notre Dame, and attended Indiana University. My claims to fame are I'm probably the only person I know who has been a reporter who covered an international economic summit, the World Cup soccer tournament, the White House, and interviewed Colonel Sanders. So that was my background up until 16 years ago, when I became editor-in-chief of Pro Sales Magazine. And for 5 years, I also was editor-in-chief of Remodeling Magazine. About 4 years ago, I decided to take Colonel Sanders' advice. He started KFC when he was 62. I was a couple years older, and I decided to try out and go out on my own and start Webb Analytics. My job is to help people spot the trends, the threats, and the opportunities that affect construction supply dealers so that they don't have to worry about those incoming missiles that are perhaps going to blow up their industry. I also, I should bring up one more thing. My very first start in journalism was interviewing at the age of 14, Miss Michiana Mobile Home and Travel Trailer Show in South Bend, Indiana. And being an announcer was what I did first. I have to say, I really do admire your breath control, Dave, and how you were able to say that entire advertising message. And from what I could tell, didn't even take a breath in.
Well, listen, I'm definitely breathing clearly, but, thank you for that. So this is exciting, right? Because what I love about our show is when we have people on, such as yourself, Craig, what you do comes from a passion, right? You cut your teeth in the news, the market, pro builder, the advertising world, the magazine world, and kind of covering the latest news and breaking news. And now not only do you do the latest and breaking news, but you're following the analytics because you've been in it long enough to understand what to look for. And I think that's why you're so respected in the industry and why people watch what you do. My job here is to make sure that folks like Craig and people that don't know Craig have an opportunity to learn a little bit about who you are and what you do, because it's so important to our industry. So very much a big thank you to you. And we're going to have to talk more about some of these interviews that you did. I mean, you covered the World Cup at one point, you said, as well.
Yes, I was in Mexico in, I think it was either 1986. Yeah, it was 1986. That was the famous Diego Maradona Hand of God year, where he knocked in the ball with his hand, but declined to say that it actually was him. It was the hand of God. But it was a very big year in soccer at that time.
Well, and you got to cover it, so that's super exciting. All right, so let's just kind of tell everybody how this came up, because I was standing in line at ECI in Denver, Colorado, after ECI Solutions event, which, by the way, turned into one of my most favorite events because it was a really good place for builders, developers, and manufacturers to come and learn. Not only learn about how to be better, but how to rebuild their culture, using new technology. And you were a keynote there, which I did not know. I didn't do my homework very well. And I was standing in line ordering my first Crown Royal, my first whiskey, and you tapped us on the shoulder and you're like, Dave. And I was like, oh my God, it's Craig. How was the event for you?
It was wonderful. I really did enjoy meeting a lot of great people and seeing how excited people were. For example, from the keynote speaker who was the Life is Good guy. Yeah, they really tended to like him. It was also an interesting mix of building material dealers, but people in other manufacturing businesses. And sometimes, your best ideas don't necessarily come from inside the tent; they come from looking outside the tent. And looking in the next neighborhood over. And I think that was one of the good things that ECI brought to the show.
Yeah, it really was. And the collaboration just wasn't ECI Software Solutions, Simpson and so many others were there also on display because they collaborate and they all work together. So with that said, the Life is Good guy. So for those of you who do not know who that is, if you've ever been in any tourist area, you see the Life is Good, like the t-shirts. He was one of the original founders, him and some of his friends, on the t-shirt. And he really was a dynamic speaker. And when you listen to the roads that they took to get to where they were, it's kind of like the construction industry and starting out, right? It looks like a nice paved golden road when you're at the top, but it wasn't that way getting there. And that's kind of was part of his keynote and what he was talking about.
Yes, there's a reference. Bert Jacobs probably did a good job, building that company, and I think it's the power of positivity too. That desire to get up in the morning and believe that things are going to get better, even when you're starting to see numbers get worse. And long term, that's one of the great things about construction supply. We need to have a place to live. We're going to need to have a place to live. People keep having sex, people keep having babies. And as a result, we need private places and then places to put the kids. So
I love it. You have statistics on that? I'm just kidding. All right.
That's the usual household formation rate numbers, but yes. Yes.
Well, for sure, but with all of that and all the good stuff and all the positivity, this has been a kind of an up and down last few years, trying to understand the volatility in the market, COVID hitting us, and all of that. And we're going to get into all of this and where we're headed, of course, with the putting the brakes on a little bit. But let's talk about today. There was some breaking news that came out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, well, while we were eating our breakfast, Builders First Source in their wisdom decided to announce on a Thanksgiving weekend, probably to keep the stock market, hoping that the stock market would be a little quiet, announced that their chief executive officer and president, David Flitman, is stepping down, as they say, quote, to accept another opportunity outside of the industry. We don't know what that other opportunity is, but it's probably, given that Flitman wasn't a lumber guy to start with, I think just about any major manufacturing operation would probably like to have that. By the way, it's Flitman with a F-L-I-T. Anyway, the operation has done very, very well in the last few years. He successfully led a merger. The company's numbers have shot up. And so consequently, he's probably a very hot property right now among anybody. I mean, the stock market world is pretty vicious. Disney just got rid of its CEO today after 1 year, and they brought back in Bob Iger. So right. For Flitman to have actually lasted 3 is pretty successful. Dave Rush, the executive vice president, is going to be the CEO for now, and they're going to look for they've got a committee to look for a permanent successor.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, is it something that we should read between the lines, or is it business as usual in your mind?
I think that in the world of public companies, this is not unusual. The lifespan of a CEO is actually fairly short. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, for him to have done this is well. I have heard some situations in which, people who ran public companies were forced out because the board didn't like where they were going. And I think that's probably exactly what happened with Disney. But in this particular case, I think he just got wooed and pitched, and they probably had to pay off his. I'll be interested in seeing what the payoff is for him to get him.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody, if you are joining us just now, we are with Craig Webb, Webb Analytics, and we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. So if you're on Twitter, get your tweets on. And if you're not following us or subscribed to us on YouTube, you need to go there after the show and doing it. And if you are not subscribed to Webb Analytics, you're wrong. If you're in this industry and you don't know what's going on, well, then you better subscribe to Craig Webb's blog and everything else that he has put out there, because he has a newsletter and industry reports that are vital to the decision making that happens day in and day out in our industry. So with that said, we are watched over 10,000 hours every 28 days on our website, and that's only on YouTube. And I can only imagine what's happening on LinkedIn. So let's hop into this, Craig. Your report just came out. Right. I saw the blog post just come out. It was probably Thursday last week.
Thursday.
Yep. And it said, big sign. It's time. We got to hit the brakes, basically, is what it was saying. Talk to me about.
It does not say, David, doesn't say hit the brakes. It says, and not to diss you, but the thing that I want to say is it's time to take your foot off the pedal.
Take your foot off the gas.
Take your foot off the gas. And the reason why you take your foot off the gas is not necessarily because you're going to hit the brake. You might actually put it back on the accelerator once you figure out where things stand. And that was my goal there. When you're driving down a highway and you're probably going over the speed limit like we all do, and you see that sign that says an accident is up ahead, your natural tendency is to take your foot off the pedal, but also sort of look around, see where your other traffic is. You start thinking, well, will the accident be gone by the time I get there? But maybe at the same time, I should also look for a bailout exit. You start thinking, what are my possibilities? And one of them is hitting the brakes. But I don't think we're at the point where you hit the brakes. I think you're at the point where you just realize that maybe the momentum that you've had to date is not going to carry you forward if things slow down dramatically. And frankly, if things slow down dramatically, the second thing you should be doing is thinking about, how do I take advantage of this situation? That Monday positivity you're talking about. You know, it's not a slowdown, it's an opportunity to be more efficient.
You know what? And I love it. And that's what I love about this show, right? Because, correct me on that, because we're just slowing down a little bit. You don't have to slam on the brakes and skid into the parking lot is what you're saying. And I'm glad that you corrected me on that. And I do think that, looking forward, this feels different than 2008. Everybody says we're in a recession, but it is not feeling like the doom and gloom, because I lived through the 2008 recession and I lost a lot. Right? Not only in the business, but just in life in general. That was painful. This isn't feeling the same, even though the rates are up, the inflation's up, everything's going up, but it doesn't feel the same. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, we have two things. One is that first, we haven't had that surprise that those toxic mortgages that really hit people in the face. Even Alan Greenspan didn't realize the extent to which we had toxic mortgages, and he was in charge of the Federal Reserve. The second thing is that we haven't had that day the tap turned off. I can't tell you how many dealers around the country who would say to me, Craig, I can remember the exact day that we just stopped getting business. Well, they're still getting business. And it's in part because we're building at this moment more houses than just about at any time in our history. Part of that is because we have a slow supply chain, and part of it is because we have all that pent-up demand. So consequently, we haven't fallen off a cliff. We haven't hit a road sign yet. We're still going along fairly well.
Sure. And do you see it continuing that way?
Maybe. I will say this, that you talk to people and they'll say, oh, we're booked up through March. We're booked up through April. We've got, I just was talking to a guy who was looking to get some decking work done in Asheville, North Carolina. He can't find a guy who's available until next May. So, we're going to go through that first half of the year probably very, very busy. Yeah. It's what happens after that, and the where we are in that pipeline, and how that, whether there's gas further down the pipeline coming our way is the question. Now, as I said, it could very well be that if we can beat inflation, things get a little bit better, the economy improves. You come to the spring selling season, people feel they understand what the rates are going to be. There's stability. They could start ordering again. They could start buying again. In which case, that accident up ahead turned out to be cleared by the time we got there.
Yeah. You know what? Personally, I do a lot of driving, flying, and traveling, and I love it when the accidents are cleared before I arrive. It makes life so much easier. So what are some things people should be on the lookout for at this moment then?
Well, I think you do have to watch and see what the sales are in your particular area. I mean, one of the challenges we have is that national numbers are so out of whack locally that, Pittsburgh is not Pensacola. And consequently, you may hear that the numbers are slowing down in certain parts of the country, or numbers are slowing down, but they might not apply to where you are. For example, there was a report recently that said we're building fewer decks right now. And the real reason why, from what I can tell, is that decks on new homes are directly related to where the new homes are being built. Well, most of the new homes are being built right now in places like Texas. Texas doesn't believe in decks. They believe in patios. So the greater per share that you see of Texas-built homes showing up in the new home numbers, the lower the share of decks are going to be. If you're in New England, 61% of the new homes have decks. So it really depends on where you are.
In the market, right. And like Pittsburgh, even in the 08 market, didn't drop all that much, where in other parts of the country it really did. Denver's starting to fall already. I've been hearing and seeing when we were out there at ECI.
There's another thing that's changing too. And I would add that Boise, Idaho is another place, any place where Californians are escaping to, sometimes can be one of the places that has seen the froth, and now we'll see the foam going off. But the second thing is that we didn't have single family build to rent at that time. And I think that single family build to rent in some ways is seen as a viable alternative to housing, but sometimes I think for some builders is an escape valve where they will either plan to build and then just rent the stuff, sell it off to somebody who rents it all, or they will sometimes do it deliberately. But it's interesting. It used to be that you'd only see it in Phoenix and Dallas and Austin, that sort of thing. I've been talking to people in Omaha and Des Moines, and they're getting into build to rent, single family build to rent. So, if you're a builder in Omaha now, this is an alternative that you didn't have in 2008.
For sure. And do you see the bigger builders and developers pulling back or just shifting?
No, there is a definite shift. There is a definite slowdown. Zonda, which is one of the better collectors of data on big builders, found that I think 45% we're going to reduce slightly, and another 25% we're going to reduce dramatically. Those are the big builders, and they definitely skew the numbers. At the same time, in terms of custom homes in the United States, which is what most of the mom and pop lumber yards are really involved in, we actually had in the last 4 quarters 207,000 custom homes being built. That's 9% more than last year. And so consequently, in that sense, those places might slow it down a little bit, but it might not slow down as much as the big builders will.
Sure. So we have a slowdown coming. Let's talk about what the advantages and disadvantages are for some of the people in the market. Mergers and acquisitions, for instance, right? What do you see happening now and in the future with the slowdown? Because it's definitely coming. It's not if it's coming.
Right. Well, I think first, the slowdown is an opportunity to finally improve some of the operations that you always wanted to improve, but you didn't have time to these last 2 years. As an example, Trex said, we don't think we're going to sell quite as much decking next year as we will this year, but we're looking forward to it because we've got some efficiency improvements that we were planning to do. We just never had time to do them. Now we will. There are other people who will sometimes see if there's a slowdown, particularly if it's a major slowdown, there might be an opportunity to buy a dealer, there might be an opportunity to buy a truck. I don't think that's going to happen quite as much this time because we're desperately short of trucks. We're desperately short of other materials. So consequently, we might not quite see that happen as much. But think of this as an opportunity zone, not a slowdown.
Well, that's it, right? Sometimes we get so busy, we're too busy doing the work versus working on the business to get us to that next level or get to where we need to be.
Yeah, and you were asking earlier about mergers and acquisitions. I didn't know if that was your segue, but I can get into it now if you'd like.
Yeah, do, please.
The first thing is that we're still in a situation in which a bunch of gray-haired old white guys like me who used to run lumber yards are thinking of retiring and thinking of getting out. And that's still happening. That's probably even a bigger determinant factor than whether the economy is going to slow down. But we have had a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the past year. I've been keeping them since 2018. So far this year, I've been tracking 129 deals that involve 380 locations in the country by 60 different buyers. That's a little bit less than last year, where we had bigger deals, slightly more deals in terms of total number of deals, but bigger deals per location. At the same time, we've had 175 different construction supply places open up across the United States, which is about 25% more than last year. So there's a lot of activity going on in the business right now. Some of it's related to retirement. Some of it's just because people think this is the best time for them to make a transition.
Yeah, for sure. Margaret Whelan, I only keep thinking of her because that's how we met. She calls it PMS, pale, male, and stale is what Margaret used to always say in our industry, right? And you're right. There is a lot of, us gray hairs. I'm not as, gray just yet, but I don't have a whole lot of hair to show for it either.
You're a kid, Dave. You're a kid compared to me. So
I am a kid. I still feel like a kid. You know, I'm in my 50s, man. Come on. No. So, but listen, Craig, I mean, so what does that mean for the future? We don't have a whole lot of young people pouring into this industry. So, I get, that, some of us older folks are looking to retire, but what does that really truly mean for the industry in your eyes?
Well, I think it is a challenge. There are a number of companies that have looked around and asked themselves, who's going to run this place 5 years from now?
Yep.
And they look at the current team on the ground and think, well, I'm not sure if these guys and girls can do that. The good thing that I am seeing is that around the country, people are reaching out and working a lot harder on the recruiting side. They realize that they need to go to schools. They need to promote things like classes in high schools and the like. Second thing they're doing is that they're far more willing to hire women. There were some great numbers actually just in the Washington Post yesterday about the percentage increase of women involved in construction and construction supply. That's happening. The third thing is that they actually are doing a lot more second chance thinking. Let's say you've had a misdemeanor for marijuana possession, when you were 18 years old or something like that. They're much more willing to overlook that. Also, work release programs, a lot of hiring in those areas. Now, some people may say, is that scraping the bottom of the barrel? Not always. There are some very successful companies that have actually had a policy of not looking askance at somebody who's on drug rehab.
Yeah.
And so I think we're starting to get better. What's it going to take long term? A general realization that college isn't everything. Yeah, I think we're getting there. It's slowly happening. The guy who runs a remodeling company probably drives a pickup truck that costs more than the Mercedes that's owned by the lawyer next door.
That's incredibly insane, isn't it?
What,
That a pickup truck that doesn't have all the leather and has a big empty tin box in the back costs more than a Mercedes, right? But I mean, you're right. That's the way of the world moving forward. So, with that, Craig, I mean, you look at the companies that are out there. You're studying these companies. You're watching their ups and downs and the analytics. What do you see from the companies that are really doing it well? Are they embracing technology? How are they getting the culture? How are they getting the people into their businesses? Because there are some companies out there that are taking it to that next level by providing the culture that today's youth wants.
Yeah, I think there's an expectation by younger people that, of course, I can reach you 24 hours a day. Of course, you're going to give me the price that's best for me. Of course, you're going to give me the best service and be available when I want you, and then get out of my hair when I don't. And consequently, there is a dramatic increase in the number of dealers who, largely because of COVID, suddenly found themselves forced to enter the 20th century. One of my favorite stories was a dealer that during COVID had to decided they were going to let everybody work from home. That was great until it came that time of the month when you have to print out all the invoices and stuff the envelopes and lick the stamps, and they realized there was nobody there. So they immediately got into online billing. Well, that was an advance they could have done. BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, makes all sorts of sense for a lot of people. And all the type A moms who are and dads who are chauffeuring their kids around and don't have a chance to get to the store and pick up the drill. You can go there now. The ability to see pricing and do your own estimates and do your own ordering at 3 o'clock in the morning, so you don't have to bother the sales rep, or to see where that truck is and when that truck is going to arrive at your yard, at your job site, so that you just save the minutes of time back at the dealer by not having people call you up and say, where's my shipment?
That's right.
You can look it up. All of those things are happening. COVID influenced a lot of them, and the smart ones, that's where they're heading.
Yeah, for sure. So Europe's kind of, you know, embraced a lot of this already, embraced technology, embraced offsite manufacturing or BIM or 3D modeling and all of this, you know, a little quicker out of the gate than here in the United States. What do you see happening from that outside influence? Is it Europe? Are they new entrants going to start making a mark over here? What are you seeing as far as the new entrants, new technology, and, you know, are there any curveballs we should be looking for on the horizon?
Well, first, uh, we one of the best examples of this is Entekra, you know, the Irish
Yeah.
import that you know
Jerry McCahey.
Jerry, you know, and you know, I give him a lot of credit. There are some natural advantages to BIM that made it well, not BIM, but more pre-manufactured housing that made it more likely to succeed first in Europe. Uh, uh, Housing is denser. There is more apartment living. There's more multifamily. You have slightly less custom home building and home ownership. All of those things factor in and lend themselves toward mass timber and mass construction. At the same time, we're getting better at that, and the fact that we're, you know, even seeing CLT in Chicago, you know, a place that's famous for not liking wood ever since the Great Chicago Fire, we're seeing that now. What's the hiccup over here? The hiccup over here is the belief that you don't really have to worry about getting all the hard details done on a house until you get to the job site. And that you also have the ability, when you're at the job site, to change your plans because you saw something that Chip and Joanna were doing on HGTV the night before. The great thing about manufactured housing, factory housing, tons of advantages in terms of speed, cost, efficiencies, everything. The disadvantage of it is that once you decide what you want to do, you got to stick with it. And we just have never been a society that wanted to stick with it all the way until it actually got built.
Yeah. I mean, very true though, right? Chip and Diane, HGTV, there's a culture there that everybody sits at home and watches and,
Yeah.
you know, thinks that this costs 7,000, but in the real world, it's like a $50,000-$60,000 bathroom remodel, right? We see that quite often. They don't tell you the behind the scenes stories on how those things come about. All right. So with that said, I agree with all of that, right? We're not going to see a mass exodus to, you know, new technology or even offsite construction. But do you see offsite construction and technology playing a much bigger role moving forward due to the lack of labor? How do we move forward, and how do we meet the criteria that we need to reduce the cost of housing and provide enough housing for the people that need it?
One of the things that Bill Gates once said was that if you look at changes from year to year, they really don't look that big. But if you look at changes, let's say over a 5-year period, you begin to say, wow, you know, we really have adjusted. And I think that the things you're discussing today are those kinds of things that maybe from year to year, we don't think are going to be that big a deal. But if we were to look back if we were to come to the end of this decade and look back, I think we'd probably see profound differences in how construction supply operates, who staffs them, what their technology capabilities are. It's like watching a tree grow. You know, the tree eventually grows pretty tall, you know, but it doesn't grow very fast. And that's, I think, what's going to happen with us.
Yeah, for sure. So Jennifer put, is 2023 a slowdown or an opportunity for improvement? And I actually, you know, listening to you, Craig, I think it's both. I think it gives us an opportunity to catch up on all the things we haven't been able to work on because we've been so busy doing what we do. But on the other side of it as well, I also think that, slowing down is the opportunity for a lot of people if they embrace it. Yes?
Yeah, I think that slowing down, I think that taking a breath and then figuring out how to use your time best is going to be a good thing. If sales reps are spending 30 to 40% of their time now doing nothing but requoting prices on things and telling their customers where the delivery, when the delivery ever will arrive. If those things are going to get fixed because our supply chain will slowly improve and because our pricing will be less volatile, what are they going to do with their time? They got a lot more time to do other stuff. Pursue new customers, learn new skills, become advisors rather than just order takers. Those are all examples. So that's one reason why I think this is an opportunity to produce better people.
Well, and that's it, right? We heard it at ECI. We were interviewing some of the builders out there, and before they were order takers. Now it's back to regular business. Now they need to really focus on the customer and how to grow the sales versus just taking the orders. And it's a shift that's happening because the market is slowing down. Tom Reddy says, do you see the anticipated slowdown in a way helpful for the supply chain? And I think we're kind of answering that.
Oh, yeah. In many ways, the housing market that we had was just totally unsustainable. I mean, who wants to build a house and have it just sit around for 15 or 20 weeks longer than normal because the windows aren't there? You know, think of all the damage that you had. Actually, builders were faced with the problem of, while we're waiting for the windows to arrive, do we just board up the entire side of the house, or do we spend a lot of money ripping things out and putting things back in? So, you know, it was adding expense to the construction. The slowdown also will, you know, help us get to the point where we can be more efficient in terms of delivery and construction and how we buy and stock our stores. There had been a lot of people who told me that their warehouses were absolutely full, not because they wanted to buy all that stuff,
right,
but because they weren't sure when the next delivery is going to come. Even now, if you take a major distributor of hard lines, they may only deliver to you no more than 85% of what they promised in terms of their fill rate. So I've been telling people that even today, getting a delivery is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. Once you open the box, you're always surprised by what's inside because you don't know what's going to show up.
No doubt, no doubt. Love that movie, by the way. Life is like a box of chocolates. That's, I think, how it went for sure. Love it. Love it. All right. So here we go. Let's ask. Brett Little says, I heard rates are going down. What do you think is going to happen there? You think they're going to go down?
If he's referring to interest rates, well, inflation rates have been slowing down a little bit. The producer price index did drop the week before the consumer price index dropped. It will take a while longer. I used to cover the Federal Reserve, and I can tell you they're very deliberate people, and they are going to keep the punch bowl away from the party until the people are pretty much petered out and don't want to party anymore. And so in terms of those rates, I think we may see a slowdown. You know, we went from 7% mortgages to 6% mortgages. A lot of people say that it's actually, the problem is not that we have 6 or 7% mortgages. It's that there's a fear that we've bought at the top so that people are holding back. And second, they don't know how it's going to change. So let's say the rates go down and then they feel like they were suckers. You know, they got a 7% mortgage when they, you know, could have gotten lower.
Right.
General belief is that once we get stability in the mortgage rates, whatever they are, people are going to come back on. And those rates probably will be a tiny bit lower, but they'll still be, you know, higher than we've been used to for the last few years. We just are resetting our expectations.
So we're not going to see 3-4% mortgage rates for a while?
I don't think so.
Craig, I need a house, man. What do you mean?
You know, historically, 3 and 4% was actually a great deal.
Yeah.
So,
right.
you know, those of us who are old enough, you go call up your
19%.
Yeah, well, I never 19, but I was 13, and
you're 13.
And adjustable rate mortgages will come in to the fore. You know, those things happen.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, love it. Thanks for that question, Brett Little. Appreciate you very much. We got Michael Bruce. Good info and insight. Good to see you, Michael Bruce. Big in 3D space. If you don't know him, he just came off a cruise ship. He said it was half full. That works for me.
I would not be surprised by that. You know, there is still a belief that cruise ships are floating petri dishes. So they're working hard even under the best of circumstances to keep things under control. And this also is
Yeah.
a reminder that COVID hasn't gone away. And if you've got kids, this RSV, this sort of rhinovirus is happening, and flu rates are higher. And if you look historically at where we were the last couple of winters, that's when the challenges are. So if you're running a lumber yard, you ought to probably expect to have a few more people on sick leave than you normally do.
Right. You can almost predict it now, right? I mean, you could always predict it. I guess we just pay more attention to it now, for sure. For sure. Look who else we have. Greg Ugaldi. Great update from Craig today. You know Greg Ugaldi by chance?
No, I do not. I'd love to learn more.
Greg is the immediate past chair of the National Association of Home Builders. Guy updates the President of the United States, Secretary of Housing, and hangs out with Robert Dietz all the time. He was leading the National Association of Home Builders. Greg, always a pleasure when you see there. Greg comes on the show once a month typically and gives us an update from Washington, D.C. on what's happening out there. So, Craig, if you don't know Greg, you guys should know each other. I think the two of you would have a lot to talk about for sure.
Historically, I let John McManus of Builder Magazine work on those relationships, although Bob Dietz and I are tied to the hip. So
yeah, well, I love it. We just had Mr. Dietz on the show just a couple weeks ago. One of my most favorite economists. I have to tell you, Craig, you're up there with one of my. When it comes to like data and economists, there's very few that I meet that actually have a personality and can relate. And I love it about you. And I love that about Robert Dietz as well. It's you kind of make the data fun to talk about, even if it's not fun data to talk about. Right. And I think that's a big deal. And I think that's why a lot of people follow you. You put it in a light that everybody can understand versus just being about the spreadsheet and the numbers. Right. You say it in a way that people can go, I get that. And I think that's very powerful.
Well, I appreciate that.
For sure. All right. We got John Magnan. What's happening, John? It was exciting to be in Boise and watch it fly high, but what goes up must come down. We are still at record high prices for the area.
Now, I should point out here that there is a difference between sales and prices. A lot of people are saying that sales are crickets. They're just not hearing anything. But in terms of prices, because of the cost of building materials and the like, there's a belief that maybe prices won't fall more than about 10%. Now, one reason why is that builders are sometimes doing other things instead to keep the prices up. What they'll say is, we'll give you this upgraded countertop for free, or we'll pay down we'll pay a point of your mortgage. That sort of thing, but you still got to buy it at the price that we've got because they don't want the price to go down. But so it's those hidden things that are part of the deal that are showing up there, and that's why you're seeing that. Same thing was happening with New York housing. Everybody was saying, "Oh, the rents are just as high as they used to be," and it turned out that they were like, giving so many deals, offering to basically refurbish your entire building, for free, but keep the rent high,
Right. Well, again, if you're not a numbers person and you knew the numbers, you'd understand why they do that, is what you're saying.
Total cost of ownership. Yes.
Yeah. Pay attention to it. All right, Craig. So we're at our time. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that you really want people to know?
I think generally the phrase I've been using lately is the dealers are positively nervous. They're positive about where things are now. They're nervous about the future. I think that good management, always thinking about your numbers, always thinking about trying to be as efficient as you can, trying to get beyond that 3% net profit to, even 4% net profit can, I think, make a huge difference in your long-term success. So using technology, thinking about lean operating procedures, thinking about controlling your costs, all of those things, I think, are absolute necessities in order to make it in the near future.
Craig, how does everybody find your reports, put it out there? How do people reach out to you if they want to talk or use your services? Go ahead.
Well, the website is Webb, W-E-B-B, 2 B's, -analytics.com. And that's where you can find my reports on the construction supply 150, the the deals, as well as my blog. I have a monthly email newsletter, Web Analytics Report, which you can also subscribe to off the website. And I'm on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I have not gotten to Twitch or TikTok. I'm not quite that video of a guy. So you're going to have to teach me a few things, Dave, as we go along.
Well, you know, Twitch, we only go to Twitch because that's where I'm told the young people hang out. And the funny thing about it is Greg Ugaldi from the NAHB, he always comes on the show through Twitch. I guess he heard the young guy part and he's like, well, that's where I fit in. So he goes there and it's been quite fun to talk about and do. Craig, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us right before the Thanksgiving holiday. We really do appreciate your insights, and hopefully this was valuable for you as well to kind of get the word out there and bring all the information that you offer and the data that you offer to our industry in a time right before Thanksgiving. I think the timing's perfect.
I appreciate it. One day we'll have to have a decaf coffee together, Dave.
A decaf coffee. You saying I need to slow it down a little bit? No. Yeah. Hey, I love this industry. I love what we do. It's been amazing for us. And, you know, like yourself, you've been in this industry a long time. And at some point you just really care about what's going and where it's headed.
No, I love it. I've really, it took me 40 years to find my calling, but it finally happened.
Well, you're here and you're doing an amazing job. So, all right, everybody, there you have it. There is no show on Wednesday. We're going to enjoy time with our family. We're going to enjoy Thanksgiving because that's what it's all about. But we will be live on Friday on our BS Friday, Building Science Friday show. Sean St. Amour will be joining us as well from Canada. We will kick that off, and then we'll get right back to business after the holiday break and another hockey tournament. We got lots of hockey tournaments with the kids. So, Craig, I hope you're doing something exciting with your family. What's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
It's pumpkin pie. Absolutely.
You love the pumpkin pie. There you go. Craig Webb says, have some pumpkin pie. It's full of data, by the way, if you spend enough time analyzing it and understanding it. Craig, don't go anywhere after the outro. Everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Make sure you give a hug to your mom, your kids, your dad, and everybody else out there. And we'll get back to business on Friday and really back to business on Monday, where we will all start to build it better. I'm Dave Cooper, Craig Webb, Webb Analytics. Go follow him right now. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.